Algebra 1, we've been talking about linear stuff. We're getting ready for a test coming up like Friday. That's what it says right here. Test Friday. So we're wanting to make sure that everybody is ready for that test. So let's go ahead and do some practice about some of the stuff we've been talking about. One of the things that I wrote on the board today was the idea of how do you know if it's shifting left or right. And so I used the idea of if you have a minus in the inside, a lot of people think that would be left. However, that ultimately means right. If you have a plus on the inside, people think that'd be right, but that's ultimately left. So be very careful about that. If you put a plus on the outside of absolute value, that makes it go up, and absolute value with a minus in the back ultimately makes it go down. And you can always plug in and out a value for x and get out a value for y and then plot those points or at least test the points that you're doing. So this one right here looks a lot like this example that we keep talking about that's kind of backwards. And so this actually means going right. So I'm thinking that this means only right one, and I'm going to test it by plugging in the value of 1. 1 minus 1 is 0, and the absolute value is 0 is 0, so 1, 0 is a point, and that's exactly where I'm at right now. And so I'm going to go up 1 over 1 in both directions, and this will be my line. My lines, my absolute value lines. Now for this one, it's kind of got two movements. Not only is it going left, because to make 0 in that, you'd have to plug in -4. -4 plus 4 would be 0. And then minus 2, that makes you go down for the output, so that point is right here. Now we're going to go up a few in both directions, and there's your lines. Okay? So that is a left and a down shift. So let's do one more, and I want you to try the other three. I'm going to do this one that has a reflection. We've been talking about the word reflection. Reflection is the idea that it can kind of flip down. So I'm going to show you something real quick. With my software, it can flip down. Okay? So that is what a reflection is, and we want to reflect our graph after we shift it correctly. So this plus, again, is kind of the opposite direction. Absolute value kind of changes some stuff. We're really going left here, and then we're going up for our vertex point. Now that's the point -4, 1. We've been incorporating the idea of HK. HK is these values right here. But because that value is backwards, this is where I'm talking about flip keep in class. We're going to flip the 4 to be -4. We're going to keep that 1 to get our point here of -4, 1. We're now going to go down 1 over 1 in both directions. And there's our graph. So I want to see you try number 4. I also want to see you try number 5 and 6 so that I can understand if you're doing that correctly by yourself. Standard form means you have to take a moment to solve for y and then graph your idea of slope-intercept form. So let's subtract 4x from both sides. Let's recopy the left side exactly how it was, -5y. These are not like terms. You cannot say that's 21. So this is -4x plus 25. I'm trying to build that mx plus b form, and that's why I put x in the front like that. Let's divide by -5. And so now you get y equals 2 negatives divide and cancel to be a positive 4/5. And then 25 divided by -5 is -5. And there's your answer. So we need to graph that starting at the y-intercept. This value in the back is called the y-intercept, and it goes right here. And then for the 4/5, I'm going to go up 4, right 5. And there's my point. So I'm trying to really teach this idea of testing your values. This is the point 5, -1. So if I plug in a 5 and I plug in a -1 into the original problem, it should calculate correctly. So let's see, it was 4x minus 5y, not y though, I'm getting ready to plug in a value. Let's plug in this point that I have. Let's plug in this 5 right here. Plug it in right there. And this -1, let's plug that in right here. Now we're supposed to get 25 if this is correct. So 4 times 5 is 20. -5 times -1 is +5, and guess what? That is exactly 25. So I know that I did that correctly because that point fell on that line. Okay? So why don't you try this one independently? I'm going to check your work tomorrow, but go ahead and sketch this problem out to the side, minus, divide, and we'll see if you do that correctly in terms of getting ready for the test. On our quiz last week, this seemed to really throw people for a loop. Find the slope of the line. So we can kind of look back, and the slope of this line, if it'll go backward for me, there it is. Let's go back again. This slope went up 4, right 5, and that's the slope of that problem, 4/5. So let's go ahead and walk off the slope for this one and kind of see what we're getting. It looks like it's going down 1, 2, 3, 4, and over 1. Down 4, right 1. Down 4 over 1 has a slope of -4. See, it's going down over time. Check out 10, see if you can write number 10 slope, and we'll check your work tomorrow. You'll need the slope formula, which I hope you have memorized, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're kind of labeling this. This is x, this is y, this is x, this is y. And so we need to make sure we know which values go into the formula in which place. So when it's saying y2 minus y1, that's the second y minus this first y. 5 minus -7. This is the second x minus the first x, -10 minus 10. So minus a minus is making this a positive, and 5 plus 7 is 12. Here it's like -10 minus 10 more, so that's -20. Now the biggest number that goes into both of these is 4. So we're going to divide both of these by 4, and you get -3/5. And that's how you can simplify it. Sorry. I'm just messing this up. Let's try this again. -3/5. Okay. So why don't you try number 12 and see if that's something that you can do on your own, and we'll check your work tomorrow. Write the slope-intercept form. That means I need a y equals mx plus b equation for my answer, and it has to go through the given point, and it's going through the given slope, and that is an equation y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. We call this the point-slope formula. So we're going to label this is x1 and y1, and slope, that's your m that you see when I put the slope formula, m equals. So I'm going to plug it in. It looks like we have y minus -2, slope of -3, x minus x1, which is 3. So the first thing I want to notice is that this is going to change to a plus. Let's distribute. Let's distribute, and you get -3x, and then negative times a negative is +9. Let's subtract 2 to finish that problem out, and you get -3x plus 7. Final answer. So this is a slope of -3, and if you were to plug in 3, -3 times 3 is -9, plus 7, you get -2. So I know that that point lives on that line. Last one, this combines two separate ideas. You have to write the slope-intercept form of the line. Well, with point slope, you have to be able to tell what the slope is. And if they don't tell you the slope, given 2 points, you'll have to calculate it. So let's start by using the formula and plug in all the values. 5 minus -4, -2 minus 2. And so 5 minus negative 4 is really 9. Negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. So there's our slope. This is the value that we should use for m when we plug it into the second equation. So it doesn't matter which one you pick. I'll pick this point, but we have to pick one of those to plug into the second part where we're calculating the slope-intercept form. So this is y minus y1. So y1 is this 5 right here. M, that's the slope we just got, negative 9/4. And then here we're doing x minus negative 2. Okay? You could go ahead and change this one to x plus 2 because that's what happens when you subtract a negative sign. So I'm going to multiply and distribute here. This is still y minus 5, but now I have negative 9/4 x. And then I also need to multiply. I need to multiply negative 9 times 2, that's negative 18, and then it's also dividing by 4. This value as a decimal is negative 4.5. So you could use that if you wanted to. Okay, it's the same thing. Now if we added 5 to that to finish out the problem, y equals negative 9/4 x plus a half, or 0.5, whichever you wanted to write. Thanks for watching the video. I can't wait to see how many of y'all do the homework, and check your work to see how many of you are doing correctly because we have a test on Friday. Thank you so much and have a good night.